It looked like a simple case of suicide, a young woman taking her own life, apparently driven by depression. But is that what happened?
Tonight, we piece together the clues and recreate the scene of the shooting. What we discover may shed a whole new light on a husband who some believe got away with murder. Jim Avila investigates.
Hi, my name's Melissa, and this is our Christmas.
This is 911. We need a policeman over.
Hurry up, I heard gunshots. There's somebody screaming out.
Sir, gunshot fired.
The first question you have to ask yourself is, what is this beautiful 35-year-old former cheerleader and debutante doing here, celebrating Valentine's Day 2001 in a seedy strip club in a rundown section of Charlotte, North Carolina? Melissa Motz's best friend, Del Murdaugh, can't figure it out.
The strip club was definitely nowhere that Melissa would hang out.
Melissa's parents, Patsy and Larry Huntley, struggle with it too, but suspect it might have something to do with her then new husband, Jimmy Motz. They thought she was a little too classy for him.
When I saw him, I thought, no. You know, I was almost speechless.
Now, wait a minute, what was that reaction for?
He's on a motorcycle, he's got tattoos, sunglasses, and his hair's hanging down.
Melissa was 10 years younger with a teaching degree and known for her bubbly, open personality. Jimmy was blue-collar. To the Huntleys, he seemed secretive and a little dangerous.
Things weren't maybe as she thought they were.
They may have been an odd couple, but just 4 months after meeting, they were married in a small ceremony. It was Melissa's second marriage, Jimmy's third. Later that month, the newlyweds celebrated their first Christmas with the Huntleys.
That's the new son-in-law.
Melissa's Valentine's message in the local paper made it clear how she felt. She called Jimmy her soulmate and said, "I'll love you always."
I think she's going through a little midlife crisis, and I think she thought this was her chance to have the type life she'd always wanted but had not had.
And she thought she was getting a family who was close like our family.
But her mother began seeing subtle changes.
When I had lunch with her, she became less talkative and less perky. And if I asked about Jimmy, she wasn't maybe quite as enthusiastic when she talked about him.
But none of these changes would be warning signs of anything disastrous to come.
Did you hear that? Gunshot. Will you come out to Quail Ridge, please? Hurry up, I heard gunshots. There's somebody screaming.
Ma'am.
What?
Do you need police out there?
Yes, please.
Okay, let me...
Please. Oh my God, she shot herself. Oh my God, she shot herself. They're on their way, please.
In the middle of a winter night, February 15, 2001, Jimmy and Melissa Motz pull into a parking spot in front of their apartment. Minutes later, a burst of gunfire wakes up neighbors, Tracy and Jody Gladstone, who rush to their windows and then outside to find Melissa badly hurt. She'd been shot.
She was leaned over and she was moving around as in such. I just seen her moaning.
I could not see anything really but her hair as she kind of flailed, and her hair would fling this way or that way.
Her husband, Jimmy, was making quite a scene.
And I saw Jimmy on the ground on all fours, and he was just kind of wailing, "Help me, please, God, help me."
And when officers arrived, they found the gun laying on top of the vehicle. They found Miss Motz sitting in the front passenger seat with a bullet wound to the bottom of her chin. She was still barely alive at that point in time.
Charles Cavanis was in charge of the Rock Hill, South Carolina Police Department's homicide unit.
The officers had to struggle with Mr. Motz to detain him and to arrest him at that time.
But Jimmy Motz was not under arrest for murder, just disorderly conduct while he says he was in the throes of grief. Jimmy tells police she shot herself after a night of partying that began with marijuana, ecstasy, and drinks at home, followed by more alcohol at the Charlotte Strip Club. That's where Jimmy tells police the trouble began, when he pays a stripper for a private dance and Melissa storms out.
There was some argument where she got up and went to get a taxi to go home. He got her in the vehicle and they left. Mr. Motz indicates there was no arguments, no words, said there was no conversation all the way home. And when they got home, she committed suicide.
Jimmy Motz, Melissa's blood still all over his hands, is pretty drunk at the time, as you can see in these arrest photos. He tells investigators that during the drive home, Melissa had taken his gun from the glove compartment, but he says he took it away from her and put it back. When the couple gets home, Motz says he gets out of the driver's side door, while Melissa stays in the passenger seat.
He gets out of the car and walks to the front of the car and is standing there for a little bit.
Mr. Motz, after standing there several seconds, indicates he hears a gunshot in the vehicle and turns and looks in the vehicle and actually sees smoke coming from the gun.
Motz says he goes back to the driver's side of the car, leans in, sees that his wife has shot herself, grabs the gun and heads for the center of the parking lot, where he begins firing into the air. He says to call for help. Those shots can be heard on the 911 tapes.
We need a policeman over at Quail Creek Apartments.
I see Jimmy pull in with his car in that parking space right over there.
Neighbor Chris Campbell was there that night in 2001, the closest eyewitness. He recently returned to the scene of the shooting with 20/20. Campbell says he was smoking a cigarette not 50 feet from where Jimmy Motz pulled into the parking space.
When he started screaming for help, I ran towards his car, and when I got about, I would say, 5 to 10 feet from his car, I stopped. At that point, I realized that the lady with him was under duress. So that's when I ran back to my apartment and I called 911 at that.
He says by the time he got back outside, less than a minute later, Jimmy Motz was still screaming for help and doing something so strange, he'll never forget it.
What was he doing at that point?
He was firing his pistol in the air.
What did you see? How was he standing?
He was standing right here, firing his pistol in the air, straight up in the air.
And you heard 3 or 4 shots?
Oh, yes.
Melissa is rushed to the hospital. That's where her father gets the bad news.
And I go in, and there's my son and daughter-in-law. I said, well, what's the scoop? And Susan says, my daughter-in-law says, Melissa has gone to a better place. I said, what? Melissa is dead, Daddy. I said, no, what happened? Said she was shot.
He got in the car with me, and he said, Melissa's dead. He said, she killed herself. And I said, no.
Within hours, the Huntleys say the county coroner is acting as if it is already a closed case.
He said, Mr. Huntley, your daughter has just committed suicide. She shot herself. I said, no. He said, yeah.
But Melissa's friends and family soon began to doubt the coroner's hasty conclusion. And perhaps most importantly, police are starting to doubt the husband's story.
There were several things about Mr. Motz's behavior that night that just did not seem to coincide with his version of a suicide.